Good afternoon, everybody. I'm VR Small. I am the founder and CEO for the Veteran Women's Enterprise Center. I want to welcome you to our fall kickoff of Technology Tuesdays. And I also want to share a little information with you about the organization and how you can stay connected. I know that we are doing a, where am I getting feedback? Okay, it looks like when we stream YouTube Live, it just takes over. So we're not going to stream YouTube Live. We're going to have to upload it and download it and then upload it because it just took over the session there. All right, everybody, again, I'm going to welcome you. So we have a good recording. I'm VR Small. I'm the founder and CEO for the Veteran Women's Enterprise Center. And we want to welcome you to our fall kickoff of Technology Tuesdays. Everybody, there are a lot of things going on in the fall semester. I'm going to talk to you about a couple of things that are locked in stone and then a few things that we have on the back burner. Number one, coming up is our Financial First Boot Camp. If you have not heard about this program, it is a part of the SBA Navigators program. We are a Tier 3 grant holder, and that means this program is community-based. So it's targeted for the city of Dallas as well as the DFW area. Those that can participate are, again, our entrepreneur women associated with the military. So veteran, active duty reservist, military spouse, and you do need to provide proof of your military association. That event is coming up in one more week. It begins on the 22nd. It ends on the 29th. It is 2 full Saturdays of intense work on your finances. We look at your profit and loss statement, your balance sheet, your cash flow. And our speaker, our presenter, Michael Bailey, is one of the best. He has his degree in accounting. He's been in the banking industry for several years. And he comes in all the way from Houston to spend the entire day with us, spending time with you one-on-one. We do group work, answer all your questions. And the goal is you leave the session confident about how to talk about your finances, understanding how the bank looks at your finances, and what you need to do to be capital ready. So if you think this is something that you might be interested in, and I think everybody should be interested in our finances, but some people have this, tight and you're ready to go. If you don't, this is for you. And you have to be at least 1 year in business, and you have to be able to bring your 1 year set of financials with you, because this is serious. We're not talking projections. We're talking about here's where you are, and this is what you need to do to get to where you want to be. If that's the kind of financial training you're looking for, that's what we're going to be provided. We're very information implementation driven. We don't want to give you a lot of information that you got to figure out in a couple of days or try to remember what we said. We want to get you in here and make whatever time you spend with us completely effective so that when you leave, you've gotten most of what you need. And the rest is just you manipulating it to fit your particular business. But we don't want you leaving with just information. We want you leaving with a lot of work done so you can keep pushing your business forward. The next thing that we have coming up is we will be participating or putting together an event for the Veteran Small Business Week. Now, that's usually the first week of November, but the SBA sets the date, and we're just waiting for them to make the official announcement. We usually do a Women's Wednesday event, and we've got a couple of really interesting things planned for you. So stay on our social media or sign up for our newsletter. Just follow us so you can stay in tune to what's coming up next. So I don't want to take up too much of time. Usually I take up a good 10 minutes, but I don't think we need to spend 10 minutes on this. Most of you know how to get to our website. If you go to our website, you're going to be able to find pretty much everything that you need to get connected to us. And I just want to take one little opportunity and make sure you know, some people confuse our website with other women veteran website. So if you get here and you see this, connecting you is what we do. You're going to see our next 3 upcoming events, and all you have to do is click. All you have to do is go through here. You'll be able to click on it like we're here today, and it'll take you straight to the event. and how you can get connected. Calendar, so you know what's going on. If you ever want to get connected to us, or you want to know what social media we have available,
Okay, well, I think we lost VR for a second or two. So I guess it's my show. Now, luckily, she actually gave me the notes in advance that she wanted to run through. So as soon as she gets back, I'm sure she'll keep us informed on what other events that may be going on. There we go. AVR, I just kept them warmed up for you. And was just saying, if you had any other events that you wanted to share, you feel free to continue.
well, no. You guys saw what the website is. If you're interested in events or you want to know what's going on, you just go to our calendar. Everything that's locked in is on the calendar. We do very few save the dates. We like to make sure everything is locked in so you don't have something on your calendar holding up a date that you could participate in something else. But I want to get right on over to you. I want us to be able to talk about what's going on with Technology Tuesday before we have any other technical difficulties. How about that? So if you didn't start, why don't you go ahead and just introduce yourself to everybody? And I'm going to mic out so it doesn't keep flipping back and forward to me.
Perfect. All righty. Well, hey, thank you all for joining. My name is Xavier Egan, and I'm the CEO of Capital Asset Advisors and I guess the president of Capital Asset Technology. So a little bit about myself first. My background was historically accounting and finance, traditionally in corporate America, but I spent a lot of great time as a conduit between the technology department and operations, because these days technology is one of our powerful enhancers as a tool to really create lots of multiplicity of force. So I got a lot of great opportunity to see firsthand really what technology can do and how it can impact organizations at large scale. So I really love the opportunity to help companies at all scales when it comes to technology and just realizing the power of what it can provide. So at Capital Asset Advisors, one of our portfolio companies, we actually advise on the buy and sell side of business, technology, and real estate. So under that umbrella, Capital Asset Technology is one of our firms, but also is Capital Asset Acquisitions, where we help people on the buy and sell side of mergers and acquisition, acquiring companies that are established to maybe scale the company further, or to succession plan to hopefully understand how to exit those companies successfully. And then we also own Capital Asset Real Estate, which is a real estate brokerage that focuses on the commercial side and dabbles in the residential as clientele might need. So today I have the great pleasure of talking more about our synergy division, as I love to call it, Capital Asset Technology. Because as I mentioned before, I see technology as being one of the largest tools that we're going to have in this next generation of activity, right? We had the Industrial Revolution once upon a time. We had the wheel long before that. And now it's really about that technological or digital transformation per se, how to put shinier or the newer wheels on our organizations to really propel the activity, whatever that activity is that we may want to do business-wise. So that's a little bit about what we do and why I'm so excited to bring you guys and sponsor the Technology Tuesdays. What types of companies? Yes,
yeah,
ma'am.
you know what? I think you're going right into it. I was going to ask you because Xavier has an array of different technology companies that are a part of this group. And I wanted you to talk to us a little bit about the type of technology companies we can expect to engage. And then what does that engagement look like? Because remember, We don't want to just be giving people information and kind of doing a company sell. We want to demonstrate and be able to dive into some of the different technologies, software, whatever it is that can really help this company grow. So great. There you go. So talk a little bit about your portfolio. And if you know the next two companies we're going to be engaging in November, December, hey, you could do a quick lead in.
Absolutely. So we are ultimately a technology brokerage, similar to your experience with, say, your insurance brokerage or your energy brokerage. We ultimately represent a portfolio of hopefully everybody that you may know and everybody you may not know from regards of technology carrier standpoint. So we represent over 500 in the portfolio. These are just some of the examples and some of the different areas that they break down into. The idea is no matter what the area of need or specialty is that you're having an issue with or want to expose yourself more to, we are kind of the conduit between all of those technology carriers. What we've all experienced as business owners is kind of that appetite where we want to know more information, but if we pick up that phone and call that particular supplier, we're going to get bugged to death for many moons to come. And so as a part of being a broker on your behalf, we actually kind of run that relationship where none of the carriers reach out to you unless you want them to, or unless we kind of prefer or agree that that's the relationship. If it turns out that you just need insight or more details or more education about any particular technology subset, then we're also able to bring those companies in and say, hey, help us understand better how you could serve that particular client. So we try our best to work one-on-one and really find out and discover whatever those utility needs are so that we can bridge that gap. And some of the next topics that we've got lined up for Technology Tuesday hopefully fill that same ideal set. The idea of digital transformation and how it can improve your bottom line. There are hundreds of companies, if not thousands of technology companies that are available at your fingertips these days. And the idea is that Google could be very helpful in putting you to the direction, but it's very hard sometimes to say, hey, forget Google. What for my specific company is going to make a difference? How can I use technology to make an impact? And part of that comes with having a better and deeper conversation about what it is your company might actually do, what it is you might want to do with technology and how it is you might want to get there. And from there, we can figure out a lot of the great companies that can help you with that digital transformation and the bottom line. And Spectratel is the one that we have lined up for the next particular segment, which is ultimately MSP. They can help you with one area, or what I've actually been able to use them for as a more recent use case is one of the companies I worked with had multiple facilities that they were kind of managing in the medical space. And that meant that they had multiple bills coming from multiple companies. And like most small businesses, they didn't have a huge technology footprint of staff on their team. So when it came to a problem, that meant they had to scramble and figure out who is the throat that they needed to choke, right? To make sure that they had uptime, or make sure the phones were working, or make sure that their staff was getting whatever the need is. In this case, Spectratel was able to roll 14 or 15 of their locations into one aggregated bill where they supported them on that transformation, where they could still use any of the end companies that they wanted, but now had their own external tech department that says, hey, if there's a problem, instead of figuring out the 15 companies, I just call Spectratel and they support whatever it is that I need as an external advocate. So there's a lot of power to what some of these companies can do, and they can hopefully provide you.
Xavier, I wanted to jump in for a second because one of the things I'd love you to do, and you don't have to do it right this moment, is kind of go through the different categories that you have here. And the other thing I want to say is don't use any IT acronyms unless you tell us what they are, because not everybody is an IT person. So if you use an acronym, make sure you explain that acronym so everybody listening knows exactly what it is that you're talking about. But I'd love to know too, when you talk about this, can you talk about it from the perspective of a small as well as a large business? So if I'm a one-person show and I've got maybe 2 or 3 part-time people working with me, how can I benefit or how can I use technology to be more efficient, as well as that person that has the 3 or 4 facilities, but they don't have a technology person on their team because they are a small company. How do I use that technology to really streamline my efforts as you was explaining? But when you explain it, kind of give us both spectrums. If you're small, you're medium. We really deal with a lot of small and medium-sized companies rather than the really large ones.
Well, absolutely. And I'm always happy to dig into that deeper, as I'm a firm believer in quote unquote small businesses because they consider any business with 500 employees or less small. And that's over 99% of all the companies out there. So we do deal with a huge deviation in regards to how people engage technology. So I'll take that one by one, VR. Thank you for helping me along. So, for example, some of the categories, right? Technology is such a broad spectrum, and that's kind of why it's very helpful to have a broker or an advisor to assist you. What we were talking about in the advent of SpectraTel as an MSP is more of a managed service provider, which would kind of come into that managed services or professional services realm, where they support you kind of more as an external team, but they could also aggregate different suppliers on your behalf, say your internet plus your phone plus your O365 or what have you, can all go through one company. So instead of having 5 different supply personnel in your tech of supply that you're dealing with, you could simply just have one throat to choke, as we like to say in the technology world. So to walk you down that a little bit further, there is so many things that actually apply to our businesses, whether we're small, medium, or large. And I think that, walking around this power wheel here will give you some example of that. I'll kind of start on the other side with connectivity, right? Because generally the idea is today's world, we're moving more towards a cloud environment where a lot of our software is online or web-based. So that means that your company really isn't getting the most power or active demand of any of the activities that you're doing if you don't have the right connectivity, as we call it. And that could be cable internet or fiber, or these days, wireless or 5G or satellite or otherwise. But a lot of everything else that goes on in your technology wheel or technology stack, as we might like to call it, is going to be correlated to, do you have the power of the World Wide Web to really gain access? Then we might talk about something like phones, which is such a powerful and dynamic tool these days, where they're not just calling it phones anymore, but we do use the old school visual of a phone. It's using the term now UCaaS, which is Unified Communication as a Service, which also walks us to who we're going to see as the next potential vendor after SpectraTel. And the idea there is today's power of transformation really starts with the phone. The idea that it used to be just this analog thing on your desk that, rung, and you eventually got a caller ID telling a little bit about some of our age. And so that was the best analytics you got and could understand. And you just picked it up, answered the phone. Maybe you had a hold key, something like that. But you were really tied to the desk or being able to forward it once that technology came available. Nowadays, it's really about how can we talk to our customers or even our employees in the way that they want to be talked to. The idea is that is many, many different ways, from a hosted voice type of line, like an old school phone that we might pick up, all the way to video conferencing or web conferencing, to mobility integration, the fact that we're always on the go with phones or other tools, or collaborative tools like screen sharing or things like that. Whereas now, instead of thinking about just a phone, unified communication says that we can have all of this in one very tool. And imagine if I'm a small company, how much power that is not to have to log into 4 different things just to be able to source or talk to my customer. I could simply go from sending a text message to a customer to going to picking up the phone, to talking to them, all the way to saying, I'm going to screen share now and show you something if you happen to be in front of your computer. So now I could take my customer or my vendor, per se, whichever side you wanted to think about, from end to end on ways that I can communicate and contact them, all within one particular phone call. as we would have called it once upon a time. And today, that's this powerful transformation that they're calling unified communication, so that you can talk to people in any mechanism that feels most comfortable and most confident for you and your organization.
Hey, baby, that sounds exciting because I know, and I think this might be relevant to like Zoom Phone. Is that what they're trying to put together with this concept you're talking about?
Yes, so we're going to bring a company, potentially Dialpad, where Zoom started with just the video web conferencing side and more adapted to the phone side. These guys were born in the cloud and started with the phone, then adopted, the video, and then added all these other tools and widgets, all the way to where now you can get a cool system. I actually use them myself, where there's artificial intelligence that potentially attaches a script or a transcript of all of your conversations directly to your CRM, so that you don't have to retake all of your notes. And then it's so smart that it can create action items and call notes to the conversation that you had based on who you were talking to. So unified communication can go as small as just saying, hey, maybe we only need the phone account, and that's beautiful for us. But it can be as robust as, hey, I've got the Zoom included as a terminology, which is the video web conferencing. I've got the collaboration. I've got the text messaging. I've got the automation. I've got whatever I think I need to make sure that I can be better, faster, or cheaper when it comes to communicating my product or communicating with my customers or my vendors or even my employees. And all of that, hopefully, whether we're small or large, can make a huge impact to our bottom line, right?
So the one thing I want to say, it sounds like a mini virtual assistant. When they start taking my notes and you can tell me who I need to follow up with, that's like my mini virtual assistant. I definitely can't wait to hear that conversation because that sounds like something we all should be looking at. But the other thing I'd like for you to delve into, and you don't have to delve into specifics, but give us some idea because technology can be costly. Like
Mhm.
what does some of these different, softwares and products, what does a cost look like for a small business owner that says, hey, I don't have a lot of money to spend on this. Yeah, I could use
Sure.
all of those things. Those are great and it would make me more efficient, but is it something that's cost effective?
Well, absolutely. The idea is to leverage technology as a part of the multiplicity of the business. So, where I'm always excited about technology isn't that I'm trying to alleviate how many people you need, it's that I'm trying to get people to be more effective and you to have a better need for them, right? So, instead of if I didn't have to pay my virtual assistant to actually take the notes, but she could go straight to actioning on those notes and setting up follow-up meetings and setting up follow-up sales calls and things like that, then I've just converted to more productivity or more revenue producing time by interchanging a small amount of cost for particularly that tool. So when it comes to the phone system, for instance, it's everything as a service is what they'll call in the technology space. So they're just going to charge based on users, right? So if it turns out it's just you, then that's just the one seat, but gives you all of this power in that one seat to be able to do all of this, right? If it turns out it's four of you, then that's four seats. If it turns out you want desk phones plus all this online access, or you just want one or the other, then all of that will be how we discern by supporting you as a technology broker to figure out which one or which top three out of 100 potentially UCaaS companies fits your budget, fits the utility that you want to provide, and fits your end goal of where you're trying to go and what you want to use that service for today. It may be that today there's one company that's specially purposed for you. They have the right price plus the right size, just enough of the extra sweet spot of technology. But then tomorrow, as you grow based on being able to use these tools, it could be that then we need to enhance to something even more capable for you. And that's how technology works, to where it's always growing around the spin wheel. And you're also hopefully growing as an organization, having more dynamic needs at any given point in time. So there could be something that fits a smaller team's budget perfectly. And there could be something where that smaller team says, you know what, with that extra utility, being able to transcribe things for me and port that over to my CRM and show me where people are in communications, that's actually worth an extra body that I was going to deploy. So if I say that was a difference of $40,000 versus a $30 seat of technology, then it's really not comparable all of a sudden, right? I'm getting way more uplift. So we're really trying to define what that opportunity, what that uplift is for each company, because it's going to be so dynamically different based on how you describe what your needs are, how you describe where you want to go, and potentially what industry you may be in, right?
Yeah, I like that, Xavier, because a lot of our small business owners are using interns or they're using part-time people. So if we can take a lot of the grunt work, like you said, the notes and pulling out like what's that next step, and then just give those people the next step so they can get work done. That's real value. And from what you're saying, it also sounds like you can make your company look a lot bigger, a lot more professional by tying all these pieces together instead of, it kind of being disjointed where it looks like, somebody's got to call here and then you got to call there. When it's all in one pool and you have those options, I think it could look a little more professional.
So to your point, and I write this on the board to remind myself and to always remind customers, it's really about small business, but big thinking, right? And today we can leverage technology to have the same amount of visual or impact to keep that A per se that we want to give our clientele or our vendors about how they can correspond with us. And we can do that same thing for a cost that's affordable to our particular company. That brings me to our third session that we're hoping to bring about, the new age of customer contact, right? Which correlates to that same thing of big vision on how people communicate. And that's really customer experience, as we call it on this particular map, where now contact center today is what we would call the call center of yesterday. But instead of saying that me as a small business, I actually have to be able to afford a call center with 100 people or 50 people or even 20 people in it, I can literally give one person or two people or 10 people the power of that whole call center. And that's what contact center is about. The idea of what they call omni-channel, which is just the meaning of multiple sources of communication at the same time with my clientele. So that's when we take the UCaaS or unified communication and we add an enhancement and we say, hey, well, some of my customers like to talk through social media. Some of my customers are talking through the chat box. Some of our customers are talking through me through Facebook or Twitter or what have you, or other mediums that I might have. And the contact center idea is different from just the call center, where they were only expecting a person to call in, and then I pull up all these dashboards in front of me and tap into them. Now, the contact center says that I have a customer experience that I need to meet them where they are. If they're in my chat box, I needed someone who's smart and knows what's happening in the company to instantly be able to communicate with them and respond to them at wherever they are. And so that's the idea of the new age of customer contact. And where Five9, one of the champions of this particular product, is going to come in and teach us a little bit more about how that really looks, how we can use that, and how even if we're not a company of hundreds of thousands of people or tens of thousands or 50 or 100, we could be a company with 2 to 5 people and feel like the power of hundreds of people when we have tools that bridge all these things together and make it easily available for us to communicate with our external parties, create task screens where our internal employees have drop downs that give them communications to make them easily be able to understand what they need to communicate. They have things what they call like moments and times where I can pre-program with artificial intelligence important cues that happen that I'm very frequently familiar with because I'm the company leader and I envision this, and say every time I hear this particular term, I can make sure a specialized pop-up box shows up to my employee to insert that messaging, right? No matter whether they type that message across, whether they sent a smoke signal or whether they phoned it across, or we're on a physical video conference, all of that's at the power of how I believe that my company should operate. And that goes back to that small business, but big thinking. There's nothing in between you when it comes to how you can use technology to empower your company to really show that differential however you see fit. Naturally, small things like Office 365 or Google Suite or other applications or customer relation management systems or CRMs that help you coordinate communication inside of your company are just as important as being able to have your unified communication or phone system port into all of those. So every time you're on a phone call, you can see what's happening on all sides. So it's not necessarily one tool over another as much as how do you make this your own ecosystem? How do you see this wheel working out to your benefit? And some things we may not have seen or had much education on or experience in the past, but that's hopefully what we're going to bring forth with Technology Tuesdays and bring a new company each week that'll hopefully inform us more about one of these categories or pillars of technology, as we like to call it, big companies, small companies alike. And hopefully it'll give you guys an opportunity to think through how we can help you create your own success story and how we'll help you leverage that technology to your own benefit.
I love that, Xavier. Now, I wanted to say to our attendees, one, we do this in a webinar format, so we'll have a clean YouTube recording, and we don't have screens opening up or videos and other things. The second thing I wanted to share is that you can pose a question in the Q&A. So as Xavier's talking, I hear different things that, ring for me. I want to know more about this. Does this work for my company? Might this be feasible? I want you, if you have any questions, go ahead and throw those in the Q&A so you don't forget them. Even if we don't touch on them immediately, even if we come back to them in the Q&A, I want you to go ahead and throw that in there so you don't forget them and so that we can make sure we address your questions. Because today is really about the bigger picture moving forward and how we can make Technology Tuesdays work for us. And certainly, if you have suggestions about what we can do and how we do it in the format, we definitely want to hear that. This is for you. This is the information sessions to keep you connected. And if we're missing that somewhere, let us know what we're missing so we can improve. And we're all about improvement. Those of you that know me know my background is in organizational development. So I'm always about how can we make it better, improvements. I'm not averted to change. In fact, I love change. I think change is great, particularly if it's change that's going to be impactful and give you guys the better results that you want. So I did just want to throw that out there in case somebody was saying, how do I ask a question? Or, that you can put your questions in the Q&A. You can also put your questions in the chat if you have any questions. So Xavier, I just wanted to jump in there and make sure people knew that they could pose questions. And then we could continue down this thing. And we're going to talk about the order. And if you guys have a particular order, something that's really important to your company that you're like, wow, I wish you guys could, touch in on this. I know Xavier talked about 3 companies we're looking to bring on, but maybe we have some flexibility about who shows up in November, who shows up in December, who kicks off January, to really look at what is the need and how can we meet those needs and help you get ready to really kick off a phenomenal new year for your business.
Absolutely.
Xavier, you were just talking about success stories. You want to share 1 or 2 with us on the work that you guys have done?
Absolutely. So one of the small wins I always like to say is really understanding how the phone could be so impactful for you. So I actually have a client that runs a construction company out of New Orleans where we were able to change his phone system, and it actually impacted him to where he was able to get more clients converted in a faster pace. And part of that was, to BR's point, having something that was interconnected in his system. So now when he logged into the phone system, he could see whether his admin or not was available, and what they call presence, whether she was sitting at the desk or whether she was on a phone call or not, so that it was easier for him to interrupt or interject to say, hey, well, you know what? I'm going to actually bring her in right now and set up that next meeting or get that proposal started for you, or she can get those details from you. And he was able to do the same thing for his proposal manager as well, which actually was able to get him a few more deals last year than he was expecting the year before. So sometimes it's very, very much small things that can create a big win as well. Another idea that came to mind, or a company, was the medical group that we're working with. They ultimately have about 15 locations that they're running right now. They have an M&A strategy to acquire additional ones, kind of different clinics. They open up pharmacies as well. and then they have their own growth strategy to do consulting. Well, they're really operational focused, just like most companies that we would see. We got to focus on the revenue. Otherwise, we don't have any money to expense. It's pretty straightforward for a lot of us, right? So because of that, they've got a lot of doctors and a lot of operational people to help do their thing, but they've only got one director of technology to support 150 different people in the company over 15 different locations. So sometimes it gets really to be a bottleneck, as they would say, when it comes to small things. Hey, there's an outage in the area. They weren't able to really recall and get the information that fast to know if they needed to go with backup plans or alternatives, or if it was just as simply they just needed to wait a couple hours and close out early for the day. In addition to not being able to onboard new facilities at any given pace that was relevant. So in their case, they were able to use SpectraTel as one of the suppliers to kind of help as a wraparound service to support them to move on those new facilities a little bit better and faster, and to have, again, that one throat to choke as a part of the gambit of why they can move faster in the future. So there's a lot of great opportunity out there, whether we think of some of the insurance examples or law firms or manufacturing or otherwise. Since we're on a veteran related call, one of the thoughts that came to mind actually talks to one of the topics that we're hoping to have maybe the fourth week, which is how to protect your assets, which goes into the security type of aspect. One of the large things that the military took up over the past couple of years is a new cybersecurity threat policy that was I would say, something that bellowed out from them that affected every other company that worked with the government, right? So if you're prime, you have to follow this new criteria. And then if you were sub associated with that prime, you did also. So understanding how that new particular law or requirement or a particular industry standard affected those companies and how to adapt quickly was something that we had to address for a lot of companies in that side of the portfolio. We were literally on a seminar just recently talking about cybersecurity, the idea of the firewalls or threat protection, or do we have phishing or pen tests, penetration tests to determine whether we have weaknesses in our system, are all a part of these criteria. And a new one that's going to be coming down now, starting with the military. Now they're going to switch over to public companies, where ultimately they're going to look to pass down a law where anyone who works with a public company or are subs or pass-throughs of those public companies are going to have to follow very strict requirements similar to what the DoD criteria came down with in cybersecurity. So that means that this whole industry, whether they prepared or not, are going to really need some people to say, hey, what are those new costs that are going to be associated with that? How is that going to affect my business? Are there flaws to where my business sits today? And that's just to keep in business if they were in that particular industry. Cybersecurity is such a big concern. Unfortunately, for every industry now, statistically, they're coming after large enterprise companies, but they're also shutting down mom and pop companies day by day with phishing threats or malware, where ultimately they seize your system with something as unfortunate as clicking the wrong email. They take over your system. The average statistic now says that a company antivirus actually is aware of malware being in your system about 285 to 315 days after they've already been in your system, taking all of your data and resources. So once the malware or the antivirus actually identifies that it exists, then they shut your system down, lock up all your data, all your QuickBooks, everything that you're doing with the company, and hold you hostage with ransomware, as they call it. And this is something that's affecting so many companies far and wide, to where now they've come up with a new cybersecurity insurance that people can now purchase to try to hopefully mitigate some of that risk. It's a threat that all of us are facing, whether we're talking something more enterprise associated with segment-wise, like DoD contracting, or this new public thought or law or bill that's going to come down and require us there. But it's also something that every company, no matter how far and wide they are, should be thinking about, and how they protect their own assets. Statistically, about 80% of business owners' financial wealth is tied up in their business itself. And that's a financial advisor statistic, right? So protecting that company from cyber threats, just the same as we think about protecting them from competition, right? Is a fair game for what we need to think about as a part of this new digitized society. Being more on the web means that we have more advantages, but it also means that we have new threats that we have to think about as well, and not to, be the thing that goes bump in the night, as much as say, hey, we want to protect ourselves in many ways. And cybersecurity or physical security, whether we're talking about cameras or otherwise, is just a part of that package that we have to think about as business owners.
Yeah, Xavier, and that's so cute. That's so true. They're getting smarter and smarter in the way that they do this. I remember we got an email with somebody's name at the beginning of it that we recognized. So we knew this person, they're in our contact list. But what they asked me to do to look at something just didn't make sense. So then I went and looked at the email. It was not that person's email.
That's right.
It was some strange individual to some strange website. So even if you get something from somebody, like their name shows up as the email, you can write any email down and then attach a name to it. But that doesn't have to be that person's email. And that's another thing that they're doing now, is getting into your contact list, breaking into people's Facebooks, finding out who they're connected to, and then sending you these messages from people that but linking you to something that's problematic. So we do not do links. If you can't send it to me, we don't do links.
As I said, you can't avoid everything in the world. It's about just being aware. And a part of that is that cybersecurity testing, from cybersecurity awareness to penetration testing and otherwise, are tools that you can use, that some are free, that we can get you involved with to understand where you sit. And some may cost money because maybe you want to remediate and understand. To VR's point, one of the largest CEO ones recently, even in the technology space, has been that they'll come inside of the large companies and they'll have the limit too. So they'll send out a message from the CEO to an employee asking them about something that makes sense. Hey, this CEO was out of town for holiday season. It was around holiday season, but on a business trip. They literally sent the coordinator, his admin, email saying, hey, I need you to go buy 1,000 gift cards for $1,000 and send it to me, right? Which in theory wasn't something that would have been too out of line from that company's standpoint. It just happenstance that they caught it that time. Whereas another company didn't catch it, right? Because they didn't have the right tools or enough visual or wherewithal to just think about how many potential haphazards are out there, right? So sometimes it's just the education that could be the thwart to protect us. But then other times we actually need, a bulldog standing out front, right? Now, depending on your company and depending on your space and what you're doing, that's a deviation between companies. But ideally, we want to help you get more educated to figure that out, right? Protecting your asset, no matter how big or small that asset is, it's still valuable to you, for you to protect it, right? And cybersecurity is really one of those big push points that we think can help everybody from that regards.
Again, that was a really good point, Xavier. And I just wanted to know, we're almost at 1:45. So we're going to be opening up for questions. I haven't seen anything hit the Q&A or the chat, but I do want to say we are going to end exactly at 2. So if you do have a question or you have a comment, you can go ahead and put that in the chat. I'm also going to throw our email in chat. And if you want to actually email with us some information or questions, say, hey, this is specific to me, so I didn't want to put it out there, but I'd love to see this, or can you guys do more of that? because one of the things we're going to be asking Xavier partners to do is give us these demonstrations on how this works. Like, how does it work for my company? And maybe taking you through the process of, examining your system, or taking you through the process of figuring out what kind of cloud, setup do you need, or some kind of a test that lets you know whether or not you have the right security systems in place, so that you walk away with some understanding of where you are in some of these areas. And also you can begin to examine where you want to be. I don't know if you guys talk about this at all, Xavier, but how important is a technology strategy? We always talk about strategic planning and we have all these different strategies, but how important is a technology strategy to the small business owner?
Well, it's critical. Unfortunately, over 80, say 3% of technology budgets are just spent keeping us on the rails. So only 17% of the time do we have anybody actually thinking strategically about how do we optimize, how do we use this by headed towards the future of how technology can impact us versus towards just the past of how it's worked for us so far. So to your point, it's very important to hopefully have someone who can help you get that guidance. If you do have a tech team on or a tech department as a part of your company, then having some time to focus on that is critically important. But as I've kind of shown you with all of this technology space, it's usually very hard for them to really cater enough time to focus on it, right? And that's where the broker relationship comes in, to be able to use those external parties and say, hey, no matter what the project is, no matter what pillar of technology, I could start by saying, hey, internally, I have a need or a want or some place that I want to go, something that I want to get created, some pigeonhole or bottleneck that I feel is going down with the company. And that's a great place to start to get some activity involved. Then on the other side of that, it could also be, hey, I want to understand in the end, where am I going to go and how do I get there, right? What types of tools are available to me to make this smarter, faster, or cheaper, as they taught us back in school days. And we can kind of curate that kind of conversation as well. So to VR's point, I would love to challenge you guys to think more broadly about that, bring friends, send us emails in advance, add things to the chat box, whatever you think that can help us understand what additional content do you want us to curate, or is it something specific on top of a demonstration, what we can have the providers bring to you.
So we do have two questions, but I want to say this too, so we can think about it and you guys can tell us if it's something that would be of value to you. Like with strategic planning, there's certain areas we cover. I mean, there's just some standard things you have to cover if you're doing a strategic plan for your organization. Is there some standard things we need to cover around a technology strategic plan? And is that a session that we could maybe have? It may not be Technology Tuesday, but it may be something else where we start working with the small companies about what is your technology strategy? What does it look like? What are the key things you need to improve? Where are your, high areas of concern? And then how do you begin to budget that out and put together a plan to really address those issues in a timely fashion?
Absolutely.
So can you see the questions, Xavier?
I can.
Okay, great. So I don't need to read it to you. But I want to make sure if people do pose questions that we answer those before we go on with other conversation. So I'd love to go ahead and address Deborah's question.
Perfect. So first question, absolutely, we can work one-on-one or in a group session to kind of figure out what your dynamic needs are per company. Again, that's the great part about business, is that even if you guys are doing two companies that are doing the same thing, your unique traits of how you want to lead that organization are going to curate what types of technology also mesh with or integrate with how you want to deploy that organization, right? So definitely sitting down and talking strategic planning, or walking through, as we call, an optimization audit, to understand, what is your current technology stack, as we like to call it. What does it all look like? today, and what would we like it to look like tomorrow, and figuring out those gaps and opportunities and cost structures that we can build to get there. So hopefully that answers the first one. And then Deborah, thank you for putting something in the Q&A for us. What do I recommend for a commerce platform? Well, that is a broad and various option. I think that the e-commerce is the easy part of the answer to that. BigCommerce or many other platforms could solve that. The real question is, how do you want to run your business, right? Do you want to manually be responding to clients? Do you need some automation? Do you need emails to drip campaigns to automate move forward? Do you want a CRM to also be capturing clients that have bought things or not bought things? How do you communicate with the customers? Do you only plan to be virtual only with an email base? Or do you plan to have communications verbally or video sessions or otherwise with them to try on jewelry here in person or to pick out things in a store? All of those things would probably be more of the meat and potatoes of kind of what a one-on-one session would be about, to really discern, well, it's not just the e-commerce platform itself, it's about the utility that the platform is going to provide you to really be able to run and organize the business the way that you want. So if you want to be more hands-on versus if you think that scale is important or multiplicity of workforce, or if you think you have more talents that are going to work with you day one. Is it going to be some physical stores and online stores? So on and so forth. So not to bog you down, but just to give you an answer to say that BigCommerce is good, but there also could be Marketing 360, for instance, has a e-commerce platform, but they also include the CRM side of things and scheduling and appointing appointments. Then the phone part might be a different conversation. So it's really about walking through the discovery so that we're not short-sighted on just picking a tool because it had the best marketing output, and so was the most visual that we had available. So hopefully that gives a great answer. VR?
Sure if it gave her the answer that she was looking for, but I think it's the answer you need, so that no one person can tell you what platform. That has to be based on what you're trying to achieve. But certainly
Correct.
there are a lot of great options out there. You have another question here, so I really want to focus in on their questions as we're timing out to make sure we answer them.
Absolutely. So this is a great question, right? This gets into some of the cooler managed services or data center type of activities in the cloud compute space. So because we represent—
Xavier, could you read the question out loud for our other viewers?
Sure. So where do your initial servers reside? And do you have emergency server strategies or backups at another location? So for instance, if you were in Florida with the recent devastation, do we have backups in Dallas or Houston when they had floods or otherwise? So yes, backup is very, very critical to all organizations, especially after you get a certain customer base or activity base. Instead of us personally being the guys who handle that data service itself, we actually represent, say, 20 different types of data centers. So if you were in Florida, for instance, then one of the questions would be, who are you using today, right? Is it Amazon? Is it Cisco, Google, whoever, for part of your cloud services? And then how fast do we need it to come back to you? And then where all do we want our redundancies to be? So now, instead of picking multiple data centers, we could pick one data center that covers all of those needs. So it could be, instead of AWS, it's INAP that has data centers all over the globe. And ultimately, you have your data, which is already redundantly held inside of their data centers as a part of the packages you already paid for. So instead of having to think about the backup, then the backup, we would just try to circumvent some of that with the technology by coming up with a more holistic company that already had the backup protocol in place. So they'd have a close enough data center in Florida to make sure that we ping back and it doesn't take us hours of upload download time or unlimited internet to access our data. But then we'd also have them having redundancies by having a data center in Dallas where it's already pinging our details. And that also helps for the idea that we run many remote organizations where we might actually have the business primarily out of Florida, but we may have representatives in Dallas and in California and in New York and otherwise, and they still need to aggregate and get to the same data. And they need to be just as real time as if we were sitting in the office in Florida when it comes to pinging the upload and download time. So all of that is a great question. And I would say it is something that we can instantly resolve. It just goes back to what's the detail behind the company? What do you want to do from a strategy standpoint? And then as well, how much cost is associated? Is that something cost prohibitive or not? Or do we need to come up with an alternative that's between that great, solution that I talked about and just good enough to make sure that the redundancies are covered at minimum? But all of those will be options when it comes to different technology providers that can support the needs or the breakdowns or the bottlenecks that you might have.
Yeah, and so one of the things that we are doing with Xavier's group is looking for one, how do we get you access to unique opportunities with these companies? So you might get a free trial or an opportunity to get something for a certain period of time, or to get a one-on-one session with a company that may have cost you before, but it's not going to cost you now. These things are going to be offered to those people that join us on platform, because one of the things we definitely want to do is, as we bring our partners on, that they have people to engage with, because that's part of why they're doing it, to also be able to share what they do with other business owners. These are very much B2B. So some of these people you may have never heard of, but they are phenomenal companies out there doing what they do, and they're doing with some of the bigger companies. And the last thing I want to say is that we're definitely going to continue to chime in with Xavier. And Xavier, I think we're going to put together something separate, but we definitely want to talk more about mergers and acquisitions. There's more than one way to grow your business. You don't have to bring on 13,000 new employees. You may just need to merge with a larger company, or a company that has what you don't have. And that company could just be one other person that has the expertise you don't have, but your clients are asking for it and they don't have what you have. And together you make a good combination, or being acquired by a much larger company that has the money to invest in you for marketing or expansion. But when you negotiate that acquisition, you keep your branding, you keep your name, you keep your leadership. So it's really just about putting all of this together in a way that it works for you. And so Xavier's group brings so many different refreshing opportunities to the table, and so many different people that we can connect with, that we're excited about what 2023 is going to look like in the tail end of the quarter. Xavier, like I said, we're going to talk a little bit more about, what does this series look like? What order are we going to go in? How can we best kind of take them down the track? Or you need to look at this, and then you want to look at this, and then you want to build on to that. So we can give them a strong opening for the new year, but then also just keep being able to help them enhance their company and use technology as your competitive advantage, because you're able to really work technology in a way that technology works for you. So we have about 2 more minutes. Does anybody have any comments? Xavier, I want to give you the opportunity to chime in with anything else you think we need to know, or you want to share about our upcoming relationship or your companies.
No, absolutely. I definitely want to say I appreciate everyone for joining us today. I dropped my email in the chat box. You can reach me there directly, or you can go to the technology website, capitalassettech.com. Check out some of the details that we have as well there. Ideally, I want to help support the growth that you guys have in your companies, and I think technology will be a huge part of that. So I look forward to bringing more opportunities to help you see the difference that technology can bring to your organizations. There we go, right on time.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us for our kickoff of Technology Tuesdays with our new partners at Capital Asset Advisors and Capital Technologies. We look forward to the exciting partners that they're going to bring to the table through the end of this year and kicking off in 2023. Again, we put our email in there. If you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, we welcome them all. Enjoy the rest of your day. This was, again, Technology Tuesdays with the Veteran Women's Enterprise Center and our new partners with Capital Asset Advisors and Capital Technology. Have a good day. Thanks again, Xavier.
All righty, take care.
All right.